Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. I'm your host, Lonnie Jones, and the adventure part is basically just our experiences. And some of those experiences are as mundane as growing up, being married, being a young married couple with a kid, or being a middle-aged couple with grandkids. Some of the experiences will be my adventures as an outdoorsman, a rock climber, a fisherman, a hunter, or my experiences as a police chaplain who's been assigned to a SWAT team for over 30 years. Some of that adventure may even boil down to the idea that there's a belief that I'm a chaotic Jedi. Either way, we'll take the experiences or the adventures and we'll talk about the facts. The facts will lead to concepts, and the concepts lead to application. Basically, it will be anecdotal wisdom. One cautionary word about the facts is we will tell you the facts just as they happened, but sometimes we'll tell you the facts the way we remember them happening, and sometimes we'll tell you the facts the way we've heard other people tell us the way they remember them happening. In any occasion, it's not an attempt to deceive. There'll be a little bit of embellishment, and it's an all good, clean fun and for learning purposes only. Thank you for keeping up with Jones. Introducing the Bible degree with digital ministry. Paul used the marketplace and the synagogue to reach an expanded audience. We have access to the internet and social media. I once heard it said that when McDonald's introduced the drive-through window, they did not change the Big Mac, only how it was delivered. Faulkner University is now offering a new digital ministry track for their Bible degree. Faulkner's degree provides training in understanding and teaching the gospel, alongside training that will allow students to create quality digital content. Opportunities for evangelism in the digital spaces is unlimited, and this is innovative ministry education for our contemporary culture. One of the instructors is a two-time Emmy-winning former ESPN designer. Members of the Church of Christ could be eligible for the full tuition Jack Zorn Scholarship in order to pursue this special area of study. For more information, contact admissions at faulkner.edu. That is admissions at faulkner.edu. Faulkner University is a digital partner with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure. Did you have a good time? And the question just hung there in the air like a lobbed hand grenade. You could see the spoon over here, you could see the pen over here, and it's just hanging there, and you're waiting for the flash of light and the end of your life. I've been asked some difficult questions. I've even been asked some stupid questions. I used to say there's no such thing as a stupid question. One young man said, "Hey, I've got this question and it may be stupid." I said, "There's no such thing as a stupid question." He asked me his question. If there's a guy and he's a Satan worshiper, but he's not very dedicated, then when he dies, do they make him go to heaven? I said, "Congratulations, you've just asked me the only stupid question I've ever been asked." I've been asked difficult questions. I've been asked stupid questions. I don't believe I'd ever been asked a more awkward question. Did you have a good time? And it was just hanging there in air like that unexploded hand grenade. We, and by we, I mean this guy's daughter and myself, had visited a local waterfall. And by local, I don't mean where I lived. I mean where they lived. I was visiting this community. I was probably 18 years old. I had been invited into this community to do a vacation Bible school and a gospel meeting. So from like 8:30 to 10:30 or 11, I was working at this church with several groups of small children, and I was doing some singing, and I was teaching a class. And then in the evenings at 7, I was doing a lectureship series specifically designed just for the high school students. Well, between 11 and 7, I had this free time. And I had been doing activities with the local people my age. I had gone horseback riding with some folks. We had been chasing frogs. We'd gone fishing. And this young lady and I had gone to see the local waterfall. And when we got to this local waterfall, we got to this attraction. It was a beautiful little park, but the sign at the waterfall said no wading, no swimming, no jumping, no diving. There was nothing in the signage forbidding rappelling. And so that's what I decided we needed to do. I had my ropes in the car. I set the ropes up. I rappelled solo. I went down without a belay person at the bottom. And this was in the days before auto blocks and self-arrests, zenith hitches, and Grigories. And so after I got down to the bottom, the second rappeller, this young lady started over the edge and she made a pretty good transition, but she was leaning too far forward. You kind of lean back when you're rappelling. And because she was leaning too far forward, the t-shirt she was wearing, and she was wearing it untucked, it got tangled in the rope and it got sucked into the figure 8 rappel device. And she was tangled on the rope and she was stuck. Now, the first time I ever encountered any difficulty rappelling actually involved a shirt getting caught in the ropes. It happened to be my shirt. I was rappelling on Cheehaw Mountain at the Rock Gardens, and it was hot, and I was just with a couple of friends of mine, and I had unbuttoned my shirt and let it blow in the breeze. Now, before you get these evil, odd images, this is a 145-pound Lonnie Jones. This is the 145-pound version of me that you can't even imagine, lest you ponder what on earth would motivate a pudgy, stocky guy to be semi-shirtless. But it was different times and a different guy. I didn't panic. I've always rappelled with my left hand as my brake hand. So with my left hand behind my back, I slid my right arm out of the shirt and let it fall away behind me. Now it's just on my left arm. I passed the rope under my bottom and grabbed it with my right hand to free my left hand. And I slid my hand out of the sleeve of the shirt, and I let the shirt follow the rope through the figure 8 device, and I rappelled to the bottom, and the twisted shirt slid down the rope to me as I finished the rappel, and it was not a problem. So I knew how to solve this problem. I knew that if she could get out of this shirt, the shirt would just feed through the rappel device, and she wouldn't become stuck to the point that she would either have to be cut out or be choked out. Not the best plan I ever had, but these were exigent circumstances, and so I had to work with what I had. I tied the rope off at the bottom so that she had a permanent belay, therefore she couldn't slide any further and couldn't exacerbate the problem. The shirt couldn't get tighter around her, and it couldn't, get more tangled into the rope. I took my shirt off, put it in my mouth, and I began to climb the rocks. Yeah, I free soloed. I got close enough to her. I tossed her my shirt. I was wearing a black sleeveless Oxford High School senior shirt. And I said, now what you've got to do is you got to slide your hand and your head out of your shirt and just let it feed up the rope. You put my shirt on, and I won't watch. I'll close my eyes. I'll climb back down. I'll look down as I climb. I'll keep my eyes closed. And as soon as you get switched, I'll free the rope, and then you can rappel down and no harm done. And sure enough, I climbed down, assured her she would be safe. She went through the costume change. I freed the rope and got her safely to the ground. And just for decency, I wasn't going to stand here on the side of this waterfall and the side of this little creek shirtless with this young lady that I'd only known for a couple of days. And rather than go through the awkward, you turn around, I'll turn around, I just put her shirt on. And then we rappelled a couple of more times, and she wasn't too shaken up, and I was a little bit embarrassed that it had not gone 100% well, but it was okay. I felt like I had behaved as a gentleman. I had behaved with decorum, and I had managed to maintain her dignity, her honor, and I was going to return her home safely. Well, upon returning home, her father was in the yard, and as we exited the Impala, he eyed me suspiciously, and that's when he threw that hand grenade question out. Did you have a good time? It it resonated on a very primal level. I felt really, really good about the decisions I had made up to the point that I was standing in the yard looking at her dad and realized we had not retraded shirts. And maybe it was just some bright idea I had that I wasn't going to be in that position where it looked like I was trying to take advantage of an awkward situation. And I really, really, really felt good about it until I was standing there talking to her dad. I'm wearing her high school shirt and she's wearing mine. And her dad looks at us and said, "Did you have a good time?" Speechless is not even the word for it. Dumbfounded might be close, but only partially because it's just dumb. How does one even begin a story that justifies shirt swapping with a man's daughter and maintain any sense of integrity? It even sounded suspicious in my head. You see, sir, I saved her life. Well, that just sounds ridiculous. It sounds absurd. The next question you're going to get asked is, exactly what were you doing with my daughter that put her in such a position that her life needed to be saved? Things are not always as they seem. But then if you're familiar with any type of social media threads, TikTok, the gram, or any version of any public forum where someone with an agenda can present partial truths, slanted arguments, seconds or minutes taken out of context of a video, then you already know this. If you've ever seen a segment of body camera footage rather than the whole encounter, then you've been a victim of this. If you've ever seen a line out of a speech taken out of context, you've been a victim of this. I'm not a victim of it in modern times, but you think about the people who make decisions about the decisions that police officers make. I participated for a while as an instructor in our defensive tactics class, and one of the arguments I made about jujitsu, and if you don't understand the uninformed, the uninitiated about a chokehold in jujitsu, I get it. The optics are terrible. You have a person who has another person around the head or around the neck, and it just looks bad. But what you don't understand is a blood choke is not an air choke. And when you start talking about using a choke to defend yourself, the question should be, did this person die because they were in the choke or while they were in the choke? And those two things are very, very different. You see people die while they are in the hospital. They don't die because they're in the hospital. The latter is what malpractice is about. But you see, if I'm struggling with a guy, if I'm trying to defend myself in a physical encounter and the guy's on meth or PCP or he's real high or he's in an altered mental state and I break his arm, he may continue to fight. And it takes a lot of blunt force trauma to de-escalate that situation. But if I grab him around the head and I trap one arm and his head together, I just trap his head by itself and I put him to sleep, they all go to sleep. And it doesn't matter if they're high, it doesn't matter if they're on meth, it doesn't matter if they're on PCP, crack, crazy, or demon possessed, they all go to sleep. And that's way more humane than beating someone into the Stone Age. But because of the relentless exposure and misunderstanding and the inflammatory language used in these situations, you don't consider the techniques and nobody considers the totality of the circumstances. Most departments say a police officer can't use a blood choke unless deadly force is authorized. And I'm not really arguing policy here. That's above my pay grade. I don't get asked my opinion on it, and I don't make those decisions. I'm not a police officer, but I'm simply explaining that what it looks like is not always what it looks like. And when you really understand it, putting a guy to sleep is way more gentle than taking a stick and beating him into the Stone Age. Now, there are times when it's exactly what it looks like. And you catch somebody in a situation or you catch somebody doing something and then they offer you minimization, denial, or blame. Then you recognize that person is just trying to excuse their behavior. They're not trying to solve the problem. I remember there's a legendary line, some guys burst in on a house and discovered this man with someone he wasn't supposed to be with. And I mean, he was caught, as they say, red-handed. And his famous line was, "Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes?" Well, objective truth and subjective appearances are very, very different. Maybe there is no way to make a distinction between what it looks like and what it is in that exact moment. But with a little context and a little explanation, a lot of these terrible situations could be explained very easily. Hindsight is 2020. Looking back at something after it has been analyzed, after it has been put into full context, after you've seen the whole video, or even if you've got a understanding about the totality of the circumstances and you see it from a different perspective, that would eliminate the snap judgment and the overreaction and the inaccurate reaction. But in the case of shirt swapping, in the case of standing there in the front yard with this young lady, and she's wearing a shirt that doesn't belong to her, and I'm wearing a shirt that doesn't belong to me, and it was not what it appeared to be, but neither was it completely innocent. Now, I had behaved as a gentleman as far as it comes to this young lady's integrity and this young lady's honor. But truth be told, we were somewhere we were not supposed to be, on the other side of the falls. And we were doing something that we weren't supposed to be doing. We were rappelling down the falls. Climbing and rappelling was not on the sign. The sign didn't expressly forbid the activity, but the intent of the sign, without spelling it out, was pretty clear. They didn't want you going over the falls. At the time, I felt pretty clever. I felt pretty cavalier. I felt kind of adventuresome. None of those feelings were worth having done something that required explaining what was going on to this young lady's dad. I was there representing the church. I was there as a minister of the gospel. And the reasons I had to explain I wouldn't have had to explain anything if there hadn't been any questions. If there weren't any questions to be asked, there wouldn't have been any explanations expected. If we eliminate the need for those kind of assumptions, questions, and explanations, then our actions are not questionable. And that's the word for the day, boys and girls, questionable. Does this generate questions? Now, it may be too broad of a brush, but I'm going to try to paint with it anyway. We must conduct ourselves in matters of safety, integrity, responsibility, accountability, fidelity, and purity, where we don't have to answer any questions because our behavior doesn't cause people to have to ask questions. That's what the policy on the chokeholds with the police does. It may not be the best policy, but it keeps the uninformed, it keeps the prejudicial, it keeps the people who have an agenda to pursue from even being able to ask the question about the intent of the officer. And it allows our officers to conduct themselves in a manner such that if there are any questions, they are undeniably good answers. And it's not just about policing. It's about your marriage. It's about your job. It's about your integrity. We don't have to come up with answers if our behaviors don't generate any questions. Now, there's always going to be opponents and detractors who will come up with questions, but let's ignore the disingenuous, the duplicitous, the Pharisees, the manipulators, and the I gotcha people, and let's just assume we're dealing with people who are rational. Don't be any place where someone has to wonder, why were you there? Don't do anything that makes someone have to ask, what were you doing? Don't hide information such that someone can ask you, what were you hiding and why is that a secret? And why don't you want me to know or why don't you want me to see? When you make decisions and you decide to do or not do, to go or not go, is there any question that you love God? Will this generate any question that you love your spouse? Is there any question that my intent is to do what is unquestionably right? Is there any question that this action can be interpreted as selfish or selfless? Is there any question that I want above all else for you to be safe physically, spiritually, emotionally, psychologically? Is there any question? I don't want to have to answer the awkward question, especially not questions about my actions, my integrity, my motives, my intent concerning your health, your safety, your well-being, or my integrity. And if I don't want to be in a place, if I don't want to be in a situation, if I don't want to be standing in front of somebody and have to answer those kind of questions, then my behavior in all circumstances should be such that it doesn't generate questions. That just simply means I need to live in such a way that my life is unquestionable. Using the tool of shortwave radio, World Christian Broadcasting literally covers the world every day with the gospel. They use 2 large curtain antennas. One is located in Anchor Point, Alaska, and the other in Madagascar. They send out messages that are recorded at their international home in Franklin, Tennessee. They make available 40 hours of broadcast every day. The broadcasts are made in English, Chinese, Russian, Spanish, Portuguese, Korean, English for Africa, and Arabic. They would love for your group to visit them. You can bring your ladies group, your youth group, or your men's group. Just give them a call at 615-371-8707, 615-371-8707, or you can go to 3Ws and a dot, worldchristian.org, find the Donate Here button, and make a financial contribution to support this work that literally covers the world every day with the gospel. World Christian Broadcasting, in cooperation with Keeping Up with Jones, the Lonnie Jones podcast adventure.